Boom! We're back, and today we have the Professor Brock Larson going up against a newcomer to the channel, Joe, a purple belt. And for the role today, Brock has one thing and only one thing on his mind. He's going to crush Joe using old man jiu-jitsu, and he's going to make this purple belt look like a complete white belt. So if you want to see how it's done, you're going to have to watch the entire video. Now, the first thing to know about Brock, every time you roll with him, or from what you've seen in the past, he has a very lazy but also tight half guard. I call it his low energy half guard. You can never get your leg free from here because he has such a good pinch over your calf, and the more you try to get yourself free, you open yourself up to attacks. Joe is figuring that out right now as he's trying to figure out what he should do to move past this guard, but Brock's slowly creeping his arms around the leg while he also keeps the calf maintained. Brock's going to sit up on his left elbow so he can go towards the single leg sweep, and he does get Joe over to the side, but for some reason, Brock decides he's going to back off from this once Joe starts scooting backwards. However, he was able to grab something nifty. He grabbed the lapel during all of that work, and now he has lapel control. Another thing about Brock is once he has his hand grasped around some object, you're never going to get it back until he decides to let go of it. So unluckily for Joe, that lapel is now Brock's. And if you're wondering what Brock wants to do with this lapel, he's actually entering deep half, but he's going to use the lapel to help him out. He has the lapel wrapped around Joe's leg, making this a very sturdy deep half. It's going to be impossible for Joe to kick his leg back or to sprawl. But while Joe struggles, let's quick to my question of the day. What are common mistakes that you make in jiu-jitsu? I want to film a bunch of common positions where people screw up, then I can play them during the rolls so people understand what I'm talking about. But first I need to know what you guys struggle with. Something that Brock doesn't struggle with is being on his side. If you want to have a good half guard or a good deep half, you don't want to be flat on your back. I mention it all the time, and Brock knows this lesson far too well. He's on his side and he's going to finish this sweep once he has this lapel and the single leg all wrapped up. He pulls the leg out and he very easily gets on top of Joe. As soon as Brock passes, he's also turning his left shoulder down because he would like to pass this guard. But Joe did a nice job getting his leg in front of Brock's head. By doing this allows him to create a barrier between the two, and Joe can decide what he'd like to do trying to escape this position. Assuming Joe has the flexibility, I believe he should try and invert underneath Brock, then you can look towards Brock's legs. And I mentioned the legs of Brock because his leg lock defense is not the high point of his game. That's not to say he doesn't have footlock defense, it's just not as good as everything else he does. Joe's looking to try and attack the leg just to scoot out, and it worked well to get to guard, but unfortunately he's going to get smashed past immediately with an over-under pass. This position looks completely identical as to when I roll with Brock. I'm always stuck underneath Brock in the side control position, and it typically happened because of the over-under pass. I've tried everything, pushing against him and whatnot, it just doesn't work. Joe is doing a nice job framing against Brock. He has the wrist controlled and he's pushing against the lapel, so Brock really easily just turns his shoulders in, and now those frames aren't nearly as strong. They do serve a little bit of help if you want to start shrimping, but Brock brings his hips up towards the head, and now it's a lot more difficult. Brock loves to say he's not putting a bunch of weight on us because he's about 215 to 220 pounds, but just look at his frame. There's no way that frame doesn't have a lot of weight on you at all times. Joe is tired of being in this position, so he tries to shrimp out and he falls right into Brock's trap, going into the bonus head position. Believe me when I say that this position is not any fun to be in, and Joe has a completely new struggle to deal with. I've asked Brock how do you escape the bonus head position, and he just kind of shrugs his shoulders. So if you're asking the great question about how to get out of here, no idea. I just sit underneath Brock and I wait for him to tap me out, then we can restart the round, and hopefully I don't get caught in the same position because otherwise it'll be the same predicament. Now what is good for Joe is that it seems like Brock is being a bit merciful in this round. If it were me underneath him, he wouldn't move at all. But luckily for Joe, he's taking the mount position. This allows Joe to free himself from the bonus head and allows him to decide what escapes he'd like to do, such as shrimping, giving his back, etc. I think shrimping is definitely the best choice here. I do not want to have Brock on my back, especially with both of his hooks in. That is way too much weight against your hips, so turning over would not be my go-to. Again, Brock must be feeling pretty nice because this is very loose back control. He has both of his hands out to the side so he can post on the mat, but it greatly reduces the weight he has against Joe's hips. However, Joe still falls to his side, so it must have been enough weight to get him going. Brock has some very calm back control. We can see he's on the side of Joe, but he's not attacking with any chokes, and he's mainly waiting to see what Joe wants to do. He even lets go of the hooks completely so he can transition to a new attack. And I'm not going to lie, this attack is a nasty one. He's looking towards the bow and arrow, but he's going to transition to a crossbow choke. Crossbow choke is when you have both your knees in to the side. It's the sister submission of the bow and arrow, and is extremely tight. There's really no way out of that one, so when you're caught, rest in peace. As they go into the next round, Joe is looking for a little bit of vengeance. He quickly steps past Brock's guard, he's working his own bow and arrow choke, and we can all see that Brock feels like he's in a ton of danger. Joe even grabs the leg and he's starting to pull backwards, and Brock really doesn't do anything. He brings his arm up to stop the leg, so Joe transitions to the armbar, and Brock holds his arm until the end of the round. If you appreciate the video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, thank you to my current viewers and patrons. I appreciate everybody that watches my videos. But before you go, if you want to look extremely stylish doing jiu-jitsu or other sports, then make sure to check out xmartial.com from my link in the description below, so you can get awesome gear like I have, and you can use promotion code Tyler10 to save extra money.